This is OLL News, your number one trusted news source for all things organizational leadership and learning. This week's episode features your hosts, Ben Fisher and Andy Green, as they discuss a recent Harvard Business Review article titled, "Build a Culture That Aligns with People's Values. Why is it important, and what does it mean for leaders?" After learning about its significance and implications, we will hear an analysis from Mike Adams. Before concluding, we will be provided with a series of recommendations from Tony and Shane in the field. And now, here are your hosts.
Thank you for taking some time out of your day to tune in with us here. I'm your host, Andy Green.
And I'm Ben Fisher.
And this is OLL News.
Let's just get right into it with our number one news story of the day.
In a recent Harvard Business Review article titled, "Build a Culture That Aligns with People's Values," Natalie Baumgartner talks about how the ideals of the modern worker are starting to shift. Employees are starting to seek places of work where they can incorporate their own personal beliefs and values with those of the company's mission, value, and overall purpose.
Moreover, Baumgartner touches on the need for leaders to cultivate a culture of appreciation, transparency, and acknowledgement that empowers employees to feel valued while also enhancing the employee experience.
Does Baumgartner give us any tips on how to build a strong culture of empowerment?
I'm really glad you asked that, Andy. In the article, Baumgartner outlines several tactics to build a strong, positive culture. 1. Improving employees' fit within their role and the value associated with it can help significantly. 2. Establishing and encouraging webs of connection across all facets of the organization for successful recognition, networking, and fostering of relationships. And finally, connecting the roles of the employees to the higher purpose that their job and the company aims to clearly and successfully adhere to.
Thanks for that, Ben. When we come back, we will dive into the importance and the significance of this.
This is OLL Bop 37, a fresh new value pack, featuring hits from Shalamar, classics from George Harrison.
It's all up to what you value down to where you are.
The latest tracks from Serenity Trace.
What do you value the most? Conformity or your religion?
And who could forget Iggy Pop?
I'm looking for one new value. I'm looking for one new value, but nothing comes my way.
All of that and more for only $27.99. It is OLL Bop 37. Bye now.
Welcome back, everyone. Before jumping into the next segment, we really want to stress the importance of this article. This is something that should be understood contextually, but it should be something that can be applied across organizations who wish to stay ahead of the curve as employee expectations continue to shift. As a current or future leader, regardless of the industry, taking the time to develop and implement an effective culture within your organization will help to foster stability, connectedness, and productivity throughout your workforce.
Thanks for that, Ben. And now we go to Chief Correspondent Mike Adams with the weekly leadership analysis.
Thanks, Andy. I'm happy to be here. On this week's segment of Leadership Analysis, we are going to be studying some of the potential implications that Natalie Baumgartner's article may have on leadership. If the corrective shift towards aligning employees' roles, responsibilities, and values into their work is not effectively realized by leadership, they will foster a large amount of both internal and external risk for their organization. If a new shift in the mindset, practices, and approaches of leadership is not consistently upheld and implemented, not only do they pose the risk of not attracting employees who are engaged, driven, and dedicated talent who may want to work for them, but they are also risking a decrease in the retention rate of current employees who may feel the pressure of a negative culture, the lack of value in their role, and the misalignment within their organization. On the flip side, cultivating a culture that aligns your employees' values with that of the organization can have a powerful effect on ethical behaviors and the actions of your workers. Cooper echoes this significance of aligned ethical values of employees and organizational leadership, stating that if an organization does not have set ethical guidelines and modeled behavior from leadership to set the tone for what is to be considered acceptable behaviors, current workers may also begin to behave unethically as a result of this mirrored reflection or lack of accountability. Furthermore, Gilbertson speaks from a practicality perspective of incorporating a system of shared values into the culture-centeredness of an organization by stating, from the business perspective, this concept of shared values can be extended as policies and operating practices that would enhance the competitiveness of an organization while simultaneously advancing the economic and social conditions for the community in which the business operates. And that concludes this week's leadership analysis. Back to you, Ben.
Thanks for that, Mike. It's clear from what you had to say that building a strong culture is important. For some practical tips and recommendations on how to build a strong, positive culture, we go to Tony and Shane in the field.
Thanks, Ben. So really, some recommendations that I have for you, some practical recommendations on how to improve your culture at your organization. The first one, it's really investing the time to understand the actual role that values play in human behavior within your organization. Number two is really ensuring that your company's values address employees' core human needs. This can be accomplished through both individual and group evaluation of value strategies throughout the organization. Over to you, Shane.
Credible sources note that our first recommendation is to determine if company values unintentionally promote a selfish or competitive culture. If so, you want to be sure to establish a plan to both revive and rejuvenate the culture within the organization with new ideas and perspectives. The second recommendation is going to be to encourage and engage active communication and transparency in order to promote collaboration and flow of information within the organization.
Well, those sound like a great place to start. Thank you for that. We are now going to go to our question section. Over the past couple weeks, viewers like you have been writing into the studio with some questions for us all to think about.
So first and foremost, what values do you think organizations should manifest in their everyday operations? Secondly, how can individuals seeking employment with an organization ensure the values they hold align with the organization? Last but not least, how have values changed over the course of the past 20 years? How have they remained the same?
Just lovely. And with that, we are going to conclude this week's newscast. From all of us here at the OLL News Network, we want to thank you for tuning in with us.